Hello and welcome to Community View. My name is Chris Placitella, and we're here today with the Executive Director of Consumers for Civil Justice. Consumers for Civil Justice is the largest coalition of consumers, labor, environmental groups, and other advocates for change here in the state of New Jersey. And we're so fortunate today to have Peter Guzzo with us, who is the Executive Director. Good afternoon, Peter, and how are you?
Fine, Chris. How are you?
It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
In a prior show, we had the President and Chair of Consumers for Civil Justice, but we thought we might get you for a couple of minutes so you can tell us, as the Executive Director, and I think you're also in charge of legislation.
Yes, I'm the registered legislative agent for Consumers for Civil Justice in Trenton, New Jersey.
So you can tell us what you do on a regular basis, the kind of issues that you face, and I'll ask you a couple of questions, but why don't we start there?
Fine. As for the past 13 years, I've been fortunate to be the Executive Director and the legislative agent for Consumers for Civil Justice. As previously discussed with the Chair, Miles O'Malley, and the President, Jane Santasseri, you have an idea of the organizations, the 17 organizations that participate in CCJ. What I do is help put a face on CCJ in Trenton. As a lobbyist, one of the most effective ways to present your cause to the legislature is, as I said, put a face on what the issues are. There are many ways to get your message across, one of which is to spend money, and many organizations have the wherewithal to spend money. CCJ is what I would call a people organization. Rather than spending dollars, we bring the victims to Trenton, and I always try to do this on every issue. I make sure that we have someone from one of the organizations that belongs to CCJ, whether it's a senior issue with AARP, the Hemophilia Association, the Brain Injury Association, whatever the issue may be at that time, asbestos, med-mal, I bring the victims to Trenton. Legislators at committee hearings will pay attention to a victim. So it may be looked at as a form of exploitation, but when you have to make your position known, you put your best foot forward. And with CCJ, it is actually bringing the victims to the table.
Has the organization changed at all over the years? You've been around a long time now.
Yeah, I've been with the organization.
Still look good, but...
Thank you, Chris. It's just how I wrote it. You can see it right there. CCJ has expanded. It's grown in terms of the issues. Over the years, the different threats, there are different threats that arise to different organizations and different victims. At one point, it may be that I can recall years ago, for example, with Lyme's victims, when we worked with them, there was a mandate that the insurance industry only had to provide 30 days of intravenous care. We actually brought down, CCJ, a busload of Lyme victims with their intravenous in their arms. They came to Trenton. They testified at the hearings. The effectiveness of that was that the law was changed. So the issues changed. As Miles O'Malley expressed in the previous interview with medical malpractice, we were up against the Medical Association of New Jersey and the insurance industry, but we were able to bring med-mal victims in the new organization called Voices for Patient Protection to the table, and it was effective, and it stopped the draconian med-mal measures that were being proposed by the medical society and the insurance industry, namely to put a cap of $250,000 on a lifetime of care for a victim, which was preposterous. And when we had victims make that presentation, it was very effective.
As the Executive Director, what do you see as your mission for Consumers for Civil Justice?
Well, my mission is to keep Consumers for Civil Justice in the forefront in Trenton with legislators and with the governor's office and the various executive departments that relate to the specific issue. And we've done that very effectively because the members of CCJ have a cause, and because they have a cause, they are readily available. They never say no when I call and say, we need to have you in Trenton to testify. We've been able to place many CCJ members on various legislative commissions, study groups, and executive boards. For example, having just come through the medical malpractice reform fight, we were able to get at least 3 of our members on the med-mal study task force. So again, we have the recognition. Legislators and the governor's office know who CCJ is and who its members are. We also have a hotline, and you can see behind us the hotline number, 609-278-1652, where you can call in, consumers and victims call in on a periodic basis, and we try to help channel their issues and needs to the proper state agency. So it's keeping them involved. I also, Chris, work with other organizations that aren't part of CCJ. On the national level, we work very closely with various justice and victims organizations to find out what's going on in other states and what is going on a national level. They call us when they need our assistance in Washington, and I call them when we need their assistance in New Jersey. So there's a good exchange between all the organizations.
Now, you're a coalition. What does that mean for people out there? What does it mean to be a coalition of consumer, labor, environmental, interested people? What does that mean?
Well, it's a way of leveraging a specific organization's ability to get its message across. We don't usurp any particular member organization. They still have their identity, but if, for example, the Hemophilia Association has a specific issue, it impacts on the Brain Injury Association, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, healthcare workers. We are able to bring those organizations together at a specific time, and that just gives an increased thrust and power to the specific issue of the Hemophilia Association. What connects all these organizations is that they are victims, or as we like to say, potential victims. So they all work together to help each other, even though it may not be their specific agenda item at that particular time.
Now, when you're dealing with these kinds of issues and somebody who feels like they don't have a voice for an issue that's important to them, how do they access your voice in order to help them?
Well, I've been approached by a number of individuals and organizations who don't specifically want to join CCJ, but they're looking for CCJ's help. I will take it to the board meeting, and we have a constitution, rules that we operate by, and the chair, Miles O'Malley, will bring it up at the board meeting. The board members look at it and decide whether it falls within the parameters of the CCJ mission statement. If it does, then at the next board meeting we will invite that individual or organization to present their cause, their issue, and the organization then adopts it as part of their agenda, and we move forward supplying them with the assistance that they need, the lobbying efforts that they need, and coming down to testify in Trenton.
So CCJ doesn't give money. They give voice and people. Is that correct?
That is the power. And, the old saying that power, people are the power is true. I mean, we have been up against some of the richest organizations, whether they are insurance industry types or whether it's the medical association or polluters. We have been able to put a face on the victims and a face on the issue. And I say that in my experience in Trenton, and I've been there over 30 years, is that seniors, young children, and victims, legislators will pay attention to those three constituent groups. If you don't have the money, you put a voice to the victim and you put a face to the issue. And that's what we've been able to do very successfully over these past 13 years.
Peter, this sounds like a great organization. I know of your work. I know of your tremendous accomplishments. And I thank you on behalf of the people of the state of New Jersey.
Thank you very much, Chris, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. That's it for this week's version of Community View. We have with us today Peter Guzzo, Chairman, or Executive Director, rather, of Consumers for Civil Justice, the largest coalition of consumers, labor, and public interest organizations in the state of New Jersey. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.